unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live, Boxing Ego Unpacked. Yeah. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. Wow. Tony Bellew says Anthony Joshua beats Ruiz in the rematch. He says he wanted to fight Wilder and that AJ is the best heavyweight athlete in the last 20 years. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Also, subscribe to the channel for the latest and greatest in boxing. If you want to become part of the gang, notification gang, please hit the bell icon. Shout out to the Super Chats, channel donations, the Venmo donations, and the Patreon family. Cash App, we working. Sign up for ESPN Plus below using my link. It does help the channel. Now, Tony Bellew, link in the description, has an interview, and it was taken after the Callum Smith-John Ryder fight. And I talked about this in my stream earlier. The UK bias for UK fighters and, you know, the whole Sky Sports for the cash cows on Sky Sports, it is gotten to a point where it's blatant. It's obvious that they're not even trying to really mask it or hide the fact that it's extremely biased commentary. Tony Bellew in this said that Callum Smith, this is not even really what the video is about, but this is just to give you guys an idea. Tony Bellew said that John Ryder did better than people expected. So just because he did better than people expected doesn't mean he won the fight. But if you watch Callum Smith from start to finish versus John Ryder, I really thought John Ryder beat Callum Smith. It has nothing to do with, oh, he did better. It's like Sergey Deryevchenko did better versus Golovkin than people thought. But in addition to that, I actually think he beat Gennady Golovkin. Not just that he did better, he actually won more rounds in a 12-round fight. Callum Smith, just go on the internet, go on the internet and go to Twitter, go to, anyone who's posting about the fight and read what people are saying in the comment section. Go to any Sky Sports video about what people said with the Callum Smith. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, Callum Smith himself, wasn't even really content with his performance. So to have Tony Bellew make it like, John Ryder clearly lost shows to me a clear-cut bias. Now let's get into the heavyweight division. He's being asked about Wilder. He says it's Wilder's fight week. So this is before the Luis Ortiz win, of course, when it was taken. It was actually in the daytime, because the fight happened UK time. So the Ortiz was later that night, and he was asked about Wilder. And then he says, look at AJ's resume and look at Wilder's resume, and there's no comparison. He says that Anthony Joshua, basically his resume is eons ahead of Wilder's resume, and how could you not say that Anthony Joshua, I'm just paraphrasing, I'm not going to read a direct quote or anything, but he said, how can you say Anthony Joshua doesn't want to fight the world champions when he's been calling out the world champions and he has a resume that, is rivaling and much better and greater than Deontay Wilder's resume, which I disagree with, right? He says he's been wanting to fight, and then he veered off and started talking about how Anthony Joshua is the best heavyweight athlete in the last 20 years, which I also disagree with. I think Wilder, how is Joshua the best heavyweight athlete and Wilder is freakishly athletic and knocking people out with one punch? He, in the Bermane-Stiverne rematch, in the third knockdown, which led to the knockout, he ran towards Stiverne and did like a stutter step, almost like a football move, like a juke move. And then he started bombing on Bermane-Stiverne. So I don't see that either, and he went on, he was saying a lot of stuff. And to me, I like Tony Bellew, the fighter, but him as a commentator, it just looks like he's caught up in the Rapture Company, man, and stuff like that. I really like Carl Froch. When we're not talking about Andre Ward, Carl Froch seems to have great commentary. Even though he works with Sky in conjunction with them, he has great realistic commentary by and large. Tony Bellew, it seems like he always has something to say about Deontay Wilder, and then he had an opportunity to fight Wilder, and he says, oh, his arms wrapped around my hand twice, so I'll never fight him. At first I was down to it, but I'm not going to risk my health, and why would I give him that type of advantage? But every time he's talking about Wilder, it seems to be kind of negative and downplaying Wilder's achievements and accomplishments. Now, again, albeit this was before the Luis Ortiz outcome, because, you know, at the time it was filmed, it hadn't happened yet. But still, I mean, he's talking about, he was saying a lot of stuff. You guys just check out the interview. Let me know what you guys think. He also said, you know, in addition to Joshua being the best heavyweight athlete in the last 20 years, I mean, that sounds crazy to me. Wilder is super athletic. Joshua looks stiff. People say he's a robot. He's robotic. Andy Ruiz doesn't, quote unquote, look the part. He looks a bit tubby and stuff, and he has more fluidity to his movement. So how did Anthony Joshua lose to Andy Ruiz, who looks a lot looser, letting his combinations fly and letting them rip? But you're saying that Joshua is the best athlete in the last 20 years. Why didn't he beat? He had every other advantage. It was a rematch room card. He had 12 to 16 weeks to train versus 5 to 6 weeks for Andy Ruiz. He's the guy who's 6'6", longer arms, and Tony Bellew, let him tell it, he has the best athleticism that we've seen in the last 20 years of heavyweight. You know, the UK, it just looks bad when you're getting commentary like this, because it really sounds diluted. It doesn't sound realistic. He didn't get past Andy Ruiz, let alone fight Wilder, but you're saying he's the best athlete. And those guys appear to be, you know, more athletic than Joshua. Joshua looks, in the eyes of many, he looks stiff and he looks robotic. He's a good fighter. You know, he's technical. He has good fundamentals, but he doesn't look like the most athletic. That seems like a bit much, don't you think? He also said that Andy Ruiz is going to lose the rematch because it was a blip. Like, he's talking, it's like they all have a board meeting or something. He's literally using the same words and jargon that Anthony Joshua used. He kept saying, oh, Joshua lost to Ruiz. He knows him now, and it was a blip. But he's a gold medalist. He was the guy who was supposed to win. It was his coming out party in America. So what all this blip talk that we keep hearing from Joshua and Tony Bellew and Eddie Hearn and stuff like that, why would you be underestimating Ruiz to begin with? You're a gold medalist and you're an undefeated fighter. You know, so none of this stuff is really making sense. And let Anthony see, this is the deconstruction. Anthony Joshua better not lose this fight, because it will really be, with all the talk before and after and stuff, it's really going to be a crushing loss. I promise you. If Anthony Joshua does not absolutely win this fight, and Tony Bellew says that he thinks that Joshua will have a magnificent win, but if he does not, he is going to drop down several levels, and it's going to all seem like a facade. I mean, Tony Bellew was saying some insane things in this one. It wasn't even a long interview where he wasn't even talking about Joshua the whole time, but just some of the stuff, I'm trying to unpack it and talk about all of what it was said. He was saying some crazy stuff. He said that, you know, what happened with Lennox Lewis, Hasim Rahman, you know, no one called Lennox Lewis, you know, not a real fighter, not a real champ. I mean, what are we talking about? This is, for any boxer and boxing historian that knows boxing, by the time he lost to Hasim Rahman, that was towards the end of his career. He was filming movies like Ocean's 11, doing scenes with Klitschko and stuff like that. And he was winning the fight and he got caught, as Tony Bellew says in this particular interview. So Joshua hasn't accomplished to the point of Lennox Lewis, Hasim Rahman, which was literally one of his last fights, right? He hasn't accomplished what Lennox Lewis has accomplished. Lennox Lewis had already lost to Oliver McCall, beat Oliver McCall, beat Razor Ruddock. You know, he had already had Tommy Morrison fights. He had already had David Tua fights. He had already had the Shannon Briggs fight. So what are we talking about? You know, the Hasim Rahman was something later on in Lennox's career, you know, and Joshua hasn't accomplished, simply put, he hasn't accomplished those things that, because I remember I watched the Hasim Rahman knockout fight. That was in like, it was like 2000, 2001 or something like that. But yeah, he was, if I'm not mistaken, Lennox Lewis was coming off the David Tua victory. He had beat Francois Botha and Michael Grant. He had already had 2 fights where he really beat Evander Holyfield. They said the first fight was a draw, but it definitely, if you know boxing, it wasn't. So he had already beat Oliver McCall, lost to Oliver McCall, fought merciless Ray Mercer, Tommy Morrison, right? He had already beat Frank Bruno, knocked him out, Tony Tucker, Razor Rudd. I mean, so what are we talking about? You know, Tyrell Suggs, Biggs, he had already fought all of these guys. You know, the only person he fought kind of after the Rahman was Tyson and Klitschko, you know? So Joshua's not in that, he's not in that conversation, and people are looking at him different because he hadn't fought David Tua, Holyfield 2 times, Shannon Cannon Briggs and Galata and, you know, Tommy Morrison, Mercer and all these guys. He hadn't fought those type of guys. His resume don't stack up like that. And then Tony Bellew, he even said, oh, yeah, he's not Lennox Lewis. He'll never be Lennox Lewis. So what did you even bring up Lennox Lewis for? Lennox Lewis, the reason people, see, that's what I'm saying. Like, people act like they have a point, but they don't really have a point. If we're comparing why people didn't disrespect Lennox Lewis, and I'm not even saying they're disrespecting, but they're saying the truth about Joshua. The reason why people have lost faith with Joshua is because he's not accomplished. Yeah, Lennox Lewis, he was competitive in the Hasim Rahman fight, and then he got caught. Like Tony Bellew was saying, he got caught. So there's no reason to write off an established champion who came off the David Tua win, beat Ray Mercer, beat Razor Ruddock, avenged his other loss to Oliver McCall, fought Evander Holyfield and really won twice. Joshua hasn't done those things. Even in this interview, you have Tony Bellew, who literally said, and I can dissect this whole interview he did. He literally said, oh, Joshua, you know, his, like, people in the UK seem to be marveled by Joshua's body. He's in shape, you know, there ain't nobody hating on that, but The Rock's in shape too. There's a lot of guys that are in shape, you know. You know, Mike Rashid, he's in shape. There's a lot of guys. Simeon Panda, there's a lot of guys that are buff and in shape. People keep talking about his body. That don't have nothing to do with it. But beyond that, he literally said in this same interview, Tony Bellew said that Joshua was selling out Wembley with cab drivers. Like, what is he talking about? He fought Klitschko at Wembley. Who else did Joshua even fight at Wembley? You know? Who did he fight at Wembley? Povetkin? He said his words exactly. And that even if that was true, which I don't think it was, because the only fights I even remember him fighting at Wembley was Klitschko. And like, so what is Tony Bellew talking about? He fought Povetkin and Klitschko at Wembley. And allegedly, according to Tony Bellew, he fought at Wembley with cab drivers. So what fight was that? Like, that's what I'm saying. The UK, y'all looking crazy right now. Y'all looking crazy. He said, in the first of all, the Povetkin fight didn't sell out. We know the Klitschko fight did phenomenal and did great numbers to beat Carl Froch, George Groves. So what is Tony Bellew even referring to? Because to my knowledge, I thought he was fighting at the O2 Arena. You know, the Eric Molina fight was definitely at the O2 Arena and things like that. Maybe in Manchester and like, what fight? He didn't fight like Kevin Johnson and different guys like that at Wembley. He fought Povetkin and he fought Klitschko, you know. But his other fights were like, he fought Carlos Takam in Wales. See how I'm not even from the UK. I lived there, but I'm not from the UK and I know this stuff. He fought Carlos Takam and Joseph Parker at Principality Stadium in Cardiff, Wales. So, you know, Brazil, those fights were like in like O2 Arena. Eric Molina was at O2 Arena or Manchester Arena where they had that bombing and shit. Like, what are we talking about? So before that, he was fighting Charles Martin. Who did he fight at Wembley that was a taxi driver? Tony Bellew, like, literally made that up, you know, because the only people, in fact, he was supposed to fight at Wembley. They had this ad. See, my memory is too great. That's why it doesn't, you know, this stuff doesn't fly with me, because I notice these inconsistencies and incongruencies quickly. Joshua, if anything, was supposed to fight at Wembley his last fight, but he didn't have an opponent that was worthy, and the numbers with the Povetkin, you know, that was his first fight on DAZN, and they didn't sell out, and they're having trouble. Eddie Hearn's on record saying this. We're having trouble selling the coach packages and all this and that, so they decided to bring him to America, which was an even bigger mistake because Joshua looked spooked when he came to America, and he looked like, and there was reports he had a panic attack. Bro, this whole team looks a mess with all these things. The bias is like, it has to stop. New media, we on the case. So if anything, Joshua was supposed to fight at Wembley an additional time, and then they had flyers said Joshua's coming home. Wembley, the home of Joshua, his next 2 fights, September and whatever, June of next year. And then they moved it, and then they didn't. They probably paid Wembley some money, a deposit or something like that, and then they moved it to Madison Square Garden in America. So again, you guys tell me what fight that Joshua had where he fought taxi drivers and sold out, unless he's calling Klitschko or Povetkin a taxi driver. But even still, you've been caught up, because those are some of the top wins that people give credit for to Joshua. So if Klitschko and Povetkin, 2 gold medalists in the Olympics, are taxi drivers, one didn't even sell out, so you can't even say really Povetkin, but just for the sake of chagrin and to extend the conversation, then how are we giving credit for Joshua fighting 2 taxi drivers who are 40 years old? Povetkin already lost to Klitschko. He had served a sideline suspension for failing a drug test. Wilder was supposed to have been fought him, and then he tested positive for meldonium. Bro, it's looking ugly. It is what it is. We Unpacked, coming to you live. So those are some of the best names. If you ask people who Joshua's best wins are, they'll probably say Povetkin, Klitschko, maybe Dillian White, Parker, something like that. But those would be the names that are on his, resume. So I don't even understand what Tony Bellew is talking about. Joshua sells out Wembley with cab drivers. Name one fight that he had with someone you consider a cab driver, unless you're talking about Klitschko, Povetkin, where he sold out Wembley. And beyond that, what does that say about the UK? That's not a good look. Well, how is that a good look that you have gullible fans that are willing to watch Joshua fight just anybody and sell out Wembley? That's not a good look. In America, that's why I'm saying Joshua won't be received in, no matter what, he's not going to be received in America, because the UK and his demeanor, it doesn't really fit in. We don't celebrate stuff like that. If selling out against weak opposition, like, hey, let's just brag about that. So yeah, just listen to, I had to unpack what Tony Bellew was saying, because I disagree with primarily all of it. I think Caleb Smith genuinely lost to John Ryder. I don't think Joshua beats Andy Ruiz in the rematch, and I definitely don't think he looks magnificent. If he does, I'll give him credit. I don't think Joshua's the best athlete in the last 20 years in the heavyweight division. I don't think there's any comparison to Lennox Lewis, and there's a reason why people look at Lennox Lewis and didn't think that it was over for him, because he was a storied, decorated champion and a respected champion for so long. You can't write him off for the Hasim Rahman. Joshua, even in the, see, this is what I'm saying. These are horrible comparisons. Lennox Lewis got caught with 1 shot and knocked out. Stuff happens in the heavyweight division. Joshua got caught with 1 shot, never recovered, and continued to take spills up and down the ring and get knocked down four times in that particular fight. Do you get what I'm saying? So he kept getting knocked down several times to the point where it looked like he quit. He was trying to buy time and stuff like that. Lennox Lewis didn't look like that. He just got caught with 1 shot. The same thing with Luis Ortiz. Luis Ortiz was doing awesome versus Deontay Wilder. He was boxing brilliantly. He got caught. That's what happens. You're fighting a puncher. You're fighting a guy who's 220 to 260. Wilder's not that big. He's like 219, but you get what I'm saying. You're fighting a full-fledged heavyweight, and you got caught. That's what happened to Lennox Lewis. So that's another reason why people they consider it more of a fluke. What happened with Joshua didn't appear to be a fluke, because he had opportunities to recover. Tim Bradley, too, had a concussion in the Ruslan-Provodnikov fight, and he went on to outbox Ruslan and win that fight. He regained his senses and outboxed him. Joshua progressively did worse, lost every round, spit his mouthpiece out, was turning his back on the ref, and ultimately quit. So I don't know what's going on with the UK. I don't understand the commentary. It seems insanely biased, and we're going to see December 7th. We're going to see what happens, and I'll give credit to the winner, but I don't see it. I don't feel like Joshua showed really enough of anything to lead me to believe that this fight, he's going to look magnificent. That's my personal, honest commentary. You know, a lot of people get mad and, you know, want to be prideful and patriotic. That stuff is cool, but at the end of the day, you should really be realistic. We unpack. Let me know what you guys think. I told you I was going to want to take this. We unpacked. I just disagree. I feel like Tony Bellew and among others, Paulie Malignaggi and certain guys, they keep hating on Deontay Wilder. Who cares about the skills? He's entertaining. He does have a skill set to keep doing. At what point do you give someone credit if they continually do what they say they're going to do? You know, Joshua said that he was going to whoop Andy Ruiz and let him try on the belts and all this stuff, and he didn't succeed. But the UK seems to, by and large, not everybody, but people like Tony Bellew and some of the fans, they seem to somehow still side with Joshua and have more of a belief system in Joshua's ability and him to rise from the ashes than the person who says it once, says what he's going to do, and then does it. Wilder keeps saying, these guys got to be perfect for 12 rounds. I got to be perfect for 2 seconds. And then he's showing you that. Oh my gosh, Romain Severn, I'm going to get you in the rematch. And then he gets him. He says, Dominic Brazil, I'm going to Mortal Kombat you. Then he Mortal Kombats him. Luis Ortiz, nobody else wanted to fight him. I'm going to clean up my work. Then he knocks him out sooner. These guys got to be perfect for longer. You know, the whole fight, I got to be perfect for 2 seconds. Then he shows you that. Meanwhile, Joshua didn't do nothing he said he was going to do. Nor did he fight Wilder. Nor did he beat Ruiz, who was a late replay. Man, this just look crazy. We unpack. New media, you know who's winning this. Drop your thoughts in the comment section. We unpack. So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxing Ego, the future of boxing.